Not today. And before we let everyone in, Wendy, you were gonna, in the housekeeping, throw it to Jessica from Adoptimize.
Yeah, and then if you want to just start from there, because you might have to cut her off. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
What time are you looking to wrap up by?
10:45.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your presentation, your presentation will be around 20, and then we'll have 20 minutes for Q&A. So
Should I admit people now?
Yes, please. Thank you, Allison. Okey-dokey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time if you're just joining us. I'm seeing lots of familiar names and faces, which is awesome. While we're letting everyone in from the waiting room, please go ahead and say hi in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from today. We'll get started in just a few minutes.
And while everyone's getting settled, we'll just do some quick housekeeping. I'm Wendy Frank. I am the marketing specialist, or a marketing specialist at Maddie's Fun. This is one of my foster kitties. Now one is playing the piano, a little baby piano. So today's presentation is actually our 6th huddle for the Open Arms Challenge. The presentation today will be 20 minutes, followed by 20 minutes of Q&A. We have you muted, so if you could please stay muted throughout the presentation, we would appreciate it. And then we will field your questions either in the chat, or we will ask you to unmute if you would like to ask your question. And this will also be recorded, and it will live on Maddie's Pet Forum and the Open Arms Challenge Huddle group. And we also have a very quick announcement today by Jessica from Adoptimize. So Jessica.
Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Schlater and I am the CEO of Adoptimize, which is the animal shelter app that automates great intake photos. And I'm announcing a brand new prize for the Open Arms Challenge. We are celebrating building amazing relationships with people in your community. And we think that nothing creates a more meaningful human bond than a personalized gift. So what Adoptimize is going to be doing is, for every grant-winning shelter in the Open Arms Challenge, we are going to be making and shipping custom pet portrait mugs to your shelter's new adopters for a month for free. So that's a lot of mugs, a lot of very cute mugs. And of course, the mugs will include your shelter's logo. I will drop a link so you can learn more about this prize in the chat and learn more about this new service that we're launching next year for donor engagement. It's called Reciprocity. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm looking forward to seeing that cuteness and hearing more about your new product. Thanks so much for joining us today and sharing that. And thank you everyone for joining us as well. Today, we are going to talk about how to market to your entire community. So how do you reach those in your community who don't use social media, haven't heard of your organization, or maybe don't speak the language that you're speaking? Today, we're joined by Heather Friedman, and she is the Chief Marketing Officer at Lifeline Animal Project in Atlanta, Georgia. Heather has 23 years of agency, corporate, and nonprofit marketing experience. Since joining Lifeline in 2015, she has driven the brand communications and marketing strategy. She works with her amazing team to develop campaigns that can increase adoptions, donations, community engagement, and overall awareness of the life-saving mission of her organization. Heather is thrilled and grateful to be using her industry experience and passion for animal welfare to save the lives and make Atlanta a no-kill community. Heather is guilty of bringing her work home with her in the form of a 65-pound rescue dog she adopted in 2018 and her tiny 6-pound cat. So you went 2 extremes there, Heather F. And we also have another wonderful Heather with us today, and that is Heather Owen, the ED and co-founder of One Tail at a Time in Chicago. Heather founded the organization in 2008 while attending law school. She helped run the organization while practicing litigation until 2015. That year, she left her career to help One Tail open the adoption center and begin to reach its potential. Since then, she has served as the executive director, where she has been passionate about implementing progressive programming to address problems of needless euthanasia. Heather is passionate about social justice, good books, and finding the best veggie tacos in the city. So if you're headed to Chicago, definitely hit Heather O up to talk tacos. That sounds awesome. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Heather F, to get us started. And then we'll kick it over to Heather O to talk more about marketing to our entire communities.
Awesome. Can you see the presentation okay?
Yes, and we can hear you.
Awesome.
Sounds
Well,
great.
thanks so much for having me here today. I am super excited to talk about this topic, a little bit about Lifeline. We manage two of the largest open intake animal shelters in Atlanta. We have a private community center we just opened 2 years ago with a full service, low cost veterinary clinic and also an adoption center. We have a spay and neuter clinic, and we also have a Pets for Life outreach center. So all in all, we help about 40,000 animals every year in our shelters, clinics, and community, and we have about an annual intake of over 16,000. So reaching our communities has been such a hot topic, especially over the last few years. I think COVID put us in a really interesting place where we couldn't connect one-to-one, and we had a gap in really like reaching our audiences. So it was a really great time to think about how can we better understand the needs of our communities? How do we engage with them? How can we help them and also help less animals coming into our shelters? And then with the diversity, equity, and inclusion models of understanding how that needs to play a more central role in our communication and our all-around efforts. So it was a really interesting time. And so today I'm just going to share some of our big and small ways that we were able to find success in meaningfully connecting with our communities. So for us, it really came down to breaking down barriers. So whether it was a language barrier or accessibility to services, our jobs in the marketing team was to get our programs and our resources out to the community. And we really wanted to focus on keeping people and pets together. And so we started shifting to talk about how can we more inclusively include our communities in fostering an adoption, in certain communities that we were previously missing. And we wanted to connect with our communities and really understand their needs based on those conversations and also data instead of assumptions that we were making. So for us, we started in small ways, and we recognized that we weren't making enough of an effort to help the community that was immediately surrounding one of our shelters. It was has a heavy Latino population, and we were being remiss and not inclusive. So we started translating our flyers for our Healthy Pets events so that they understood that it was a free vaccination event. There would be microchipping, and we shared all that information. But over the last year and a half, we started translating more of our flyers that we were getting requests for information around community cats. And we just finished doing all of our legal documents this year, like our adoption agreements, our foster agreements, heartworm waivers. So it's been really exciting to make some progress during this time. And at our events, we made sure to recruit Spanish-speaking volunteers for our community to make it a lot easier to explain what was going on in the process. And as I was going through pictures, I looked at our signage and I said, you know what, that's a great opportunity. We should be translating all of our wayfinding signs at the event so people know where the cat line is, where the dog lines are, where to go for general information. So all of this is still a work in progress, but we're trying to make strides every day. And what we realized is it's not only about reaching the community in their neighborhoods necessarily, but it was also the community that was coming right to our doorstep. So we recently translated our signage on the front glass for our hours of operation. And we did our clinic appointment cards. And our clinic has told us how much their customers smile now when they hand them a card that's in their native language. And it's having a huge impact already. So we were super excited about that. And I wanted to include, I don't know if you can see the markup on this card. Originally, I think somebody had done the translations using Google Translate and something didn't seem right. So we sent it off to a certified translator to review. And sure enough, there were tons of errors, as you see here, and nuances. And we realized like you can't just use a Google Translate, or you really need to have a translator look at that. And that could be a volunteer, it could be someone you pay, but the cultural relevance and those nuances are so critical. And we didn't want to miss it. And I know Best Friends presented on Monday, and Mia shared some really awesome information on the importance of, and that certain words like foster may not have a literal translation, but in Spanish, it was better to use the phrase temporary homes. And so our translator also caught that as well. And so definitely take the effort to find a really helpful translator so that you can do justice to what you're trying to do. And then beyond just the translations, what it came down to when we wanted to reach our community was about arming our front lines so that they could have the greatest impact in the moments when they were actively engaging with our community. So this could be our animal service officers, your customer service, like your front desk, your community support teams, even your adoption counselors. And for us, it also included our Pets for Life team, because all of these groups are working super hard to help divert animals from coming into the shelters, and they're trying to provide the resources and assistance first. So what we wanted to do is we created a cheat sheet about all of our programs, all of the campaign initiatives, so that they would have it easily available to know for different scenarios what we were offering. And then we made sure that our officers carried Pets for Life postcards, that they had them in English, they had them in Spanish, business cards for our spay and neuter clinics. So we really tried to make sure that our front lines had everything to have to be successful. And then I want to talk a little bit about our Pets for Life Center. It is in the heart of the community it serves, and it's become a really robust location where volunteers and clients and the community stops in. And so it's a place where we make sure we're being inclusive and that we're including the community around there that loves animals so much. So one thing we're considering doing as soon as everything opens up is we really feel like this would be a great location to do adoptions and kind of opening that up. This is a community that loves animals, even if they are in a resource desert, and they love our big blocky-headed animals, and we certainly have a lot of those. So we're excited to see how much we can include our community in different ways. And then from a marketing perspective, I would say wrapping our Pets for Life van was one of the best tools we have. It's a very recognizable van in the community. We made sure that the free pet services and the phone number is loud and proud on all three sides of the car. And hopefully when we expand Pets for Life into our other community that serves a higher Latino population, I'm hoping to make sure we have translations for the signage as well there, because I think it gets a lot of attention driving around when you see cute animals on the back of a van. So this is something really new for us, and it came out of one of our shelters. One of the leaders over there was starting this idea of building a coalition. And what it was is this a partnership between our field and our shelter teams. And it's one like cohesive, integrated team of animal control, our animal service officers, our Pets for Life teams, our veterinarians, and our community support teams all working together on teams so that regardless of where you engage with them, you're getting the same information and the same assistance, and they're working cases together and they're identifying where there are gaps. And hopefully they're going to start attending NPU, the neighborhood planning unit meetings, and church meetings and community events so that we can share more information and that we could better sit within the community in a really authentic way. And they want to build the relationships and enlist the support of those animal lovers in the community that everybody knows and everybody turns to so that we can give them more information and they can better support their own communities. So we're excited because we think this will be a huge stride in making a more community-centric approach for caring for animals. And then I just want to touch on a few other ways from a marketing perspective we're reaching out. We write a lot of articles in our community and neighborhood newspapers highlighting dogs, articles on fostering. We send information about our programs to the commissioners so that they can email their constituents, whether it's a healthy pet event or a vaccine clinic coming up, or even our safety net program to let their community know that if anyone's facing evictions and they have pets, there's somebody out there that can help them. We do door knockers for events, and we partner with the libraries to distribute flyers, and then hopefully that will expand to community centers and other places of gathering. And then we are working on our website to make sure that it's more accessible to all abilities and all needs coming up. We do use direct mail for targeting solicitations 5 times a year. And we have tremendous success in engaging our volunteer and foster bases. And we share flyers and ask them to hang them in their breweries or coffee shops or community spaces and share social media graphics and stuff. So that's been really exciting. But one of my favorite tools that we use is our Nextdoor Army. So we put a call out, gosh, I think it was 4 years ago, to our volunteers, and we said, we're looking to build a Nextdoor Army. And we made it super easy to join. We said, we'll be sending you information to share in your neighborhoods. And they filled out a Google form. They just give us their zip code and the neighborhoods they can reach. And then we will send them fully crafted posts with headlines and body copy and images so that they can post it in the neighborhoods that they live in, and then they can help us get the word out. And it's zip code targeted, so we know we'll only hit a few people each time so that we're not taxing the same people to keep posting over and over. And also we can target, like if a dryer breaks in one part of town, we can target neighborhoods near the shelter so that we can get drives for towels and stuff. So it's been a super helpful tool to get the word out in ways where we don't have access to be able to communicate across the board. And then this was a utility bill insert that we did for the 4th of July. And it was about if you've lost your pet. And it was a really great campaign. We turned it around really quickly. But what I would have done for our next time is I definitely would have put a trackable QR code or a bit.ly so that we could have understood how many people actually used it, because it's kind of one of those things that goes off into the ether. The one area where we do invest quite heavily is in a public transport transit campaign. And so we found an incredible partner, and there was an animal lover who is our account rep, and she is just so kind to us. She gives us the best deals. Her team are adopters from Lifeline, and so they actually do all of our creative designs every year for free. And then they also bonused us digital billboard ads. So if you look at the billboard on the right, we're able to change out that creative as often as we want, because it's just a creative JPEG that we send them, and they'll run campaigns for us. So it's awesome to build partnerships and find those animal lovers, because they definitely want to help, and it's really exciting when they do. And I'll give you one last note on, and this touches on social a little bit because it's so hard to get away from it. But when you're looking to expand your reach on social media, we find success in posting shareable content in our groups and asking our volunteers to send it out to their network. And we're really working hard on finding and building relationships with our influencers so that they can share our greatest needs. And whenever we see supporters mention something, or we get a bump in engagement because they posted it on one of their pages, we really work hard to reach out and thank them and let them know what an impact it has been. And we're also getting a little bit more bold with reaching out to personalities and casts of different crews and stuff, like just to see if they will help support us. And most often they usually do. Recently, International Nova, who is a young Billboard charting up and coming artist, reached out to us because he's living in Atlanta and he loves animals and he wanted to help. So I invited him to come over and do our Dog for the Day program. And he took this beautiful pup, Rainey, out of our Fulton shelter, and he took her to a pet store and spoiled her with toys and got her a coffee shop treat. And he just went all over town to different. He shared it on his Instagram live as well as ours at the same time. So it was just another way we were able to reach an entirely different audience beyond our own echo chamber. So I know that was a lot, but that's all I have.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. If you're getting, well, some of it's for me, but you are getting a lot of love in the chat too. Your photos in this presentation were amazing. And I think it shows how really inclusive you're being in your advertising and reaching out to, with the variety represented for both the people and the animals. So let's go ahead and I'll turn it over to you, Heather O, if you'd like to share your screen and talk a little bit more about One Tail at a Time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm not going to share my screen yet, but I will in a minute. I just want to ditto everything Heather Friedman just said. I think that was all such great information. I'm going to reinforce some of that but I want to sort of take it back a little bit to the why. Why do we do this stuff? Why do we care about reaching everyone in the community? Why do we care about being inclusive? For us, we have started implementing DEI initiatives into our group. And I think a lot of you have probably either heard that, DEI and started thinking about it, or have started to incorporate it into all of your stuff, your communications and your marketing. And it's so important. And the reason is because that echo chamber that Heather just talked about, it exists based on who you reach naturally. So I started one tail at a time, and we have never actually until just this month had anyone in our marketing or communications team. So it was just us figuring it out. And probably a lot of you are in the same position. If you're a smaller group or a newer group or a rescue group, you don't have paid staff to tell you and help you navigate that stuff. So you just do what you do and you use what works. And that's absolutely what you should do. And you shouldn't stop doing that. And if you're getting good responses to your posts and you're getting people to join your team, keep doing that. What we found was that we were having a lot of success, but the people joining us looked exactly like us. We all looked the same, to the point where people would joke that we looked like a cult. They couldn't remember our names because we all looked the same. It was like pretty ridiculous. And we laughed it off at first. And then there became a moment where I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. And we started seeing that because, our demographic is women 25 to 40, lives in Chicago, lives in an urban area. And we were like, why aren't more families coming to our adoption center? Why aren't people with yards? Why aren't we getting older people? And for us, it started as being like, we wanted people to match the dogs we had. So if we had a dog that needed a fenced in yard and loved kids, and we only had 26-year-old women who worked 10-hour days in an apartment, it wasn't working for us. So we started thinking about how do we reach more people? And then that evolved to being like, well, that's the right thing to do. This adoption isn't just for one demographic or one section of people, it's for everyone. And if we want to get out of where we are now, which is constantly feeling like we're underwater, we need to engage our entire community. So that's the why behind DEI. Also, it's just the right and ethical thing to do, is make sure that you're being inclusive and not having any of your internal biases come out in the way that you talk to people. So my first question for all of you is, does your media, your social media, so the things you're posting, your website, your annual report, your Instagram, whatever it is, does that represent your community? And I think Heather Friedman's photos were amazing because that probably really well represents Atlanta. For us, we were like, oh, that it doesn't. And then we started looking through and we were looking for photos that we could put in our annual report. And we were like, oh my God, we don't have any diversity on our team. So we couldn't even do this if we wanted to. So we did two things. We started figuring out how can we attract more people to our team? And then we started making sure that people were represented in our communications so that those would play off of each other. So for example, if you see a bunch of photos and it's all people totally outside of your demographic, whether it's your race, where you're from, what language you speak, or your age, you might think twice about going there to look for help or to offer your help. So we started, and I actually stole this from another group and I can't remember who I stole it from, but it's brilliant. And they did an open photo shoot. And they said, if you feel like you're not represented in our media, and it was to their friends, their volunteers, their family, their adopters, come in, we're doing a photo shoot. We want to feature you. You'll get some great photos of yourself and your family and your dog. You can take a t-shirt or something like that, so people feel like, their time is worthwhile. And then they could use those photos to communicate with their team. So that's a free and easy way. If you have a photographer, you can use your iPhone for anything these days. You don't even need a fancy photographer, but that's a free and easy way to invite people to come in and to then have the ability to use those photos to communicate to people that everyone is welcome here. So I love that idea, steal that. I can't remember who I stole it from in the beginning. So, but I'm sure they'd be happy to share that great idea. So the other thing in your communications and making sure that you're not excluding people is just watching your language. So a long time ago, we made a switch in how we talked about our industry. So we used to see a lot of, this dog was just dumped. this dog's owner dropped it off and didn't care about them. And does that happen sometimes? Absolutely. And are we all like traumatized from that? Absolutely. But think about the people you're excluding when you post a photo of a really cute dog and say, this dog was just dumped, feel sorry for him and give us money, you know, which is essentially what we're saying. You're excluding people that have surrendered a pet in the past, whether for, you know, a reason that you think is justified or not, but you're excluding them. You're excluding people that don't like to see that kind of judgmental language. So when I see that kind of stuff and I'm scrolling now, I scroll right past it because I feel like I don't have time or place in my life for that kind of negativity. And a lot of people don't like to see that judgment on their neighbors because maybe their mom or their neighbor or their cousin has also surrendered a pet and they knew that there was a good reason why, or they just needed that help in that moment. But the last group that you're going to alienate is the people that surrendered their pets. So do we want to not talk to them? Do we want to only talk to the people that are able to take in animals right now? Probably not. We probably want to talk to everyone. So if we change the way we speak and do it in a way that's more inclusive, I think we're going to have a better grasp on how we could connect to other communities and other people and build those bridges. So we can, instead of, you know, here's this dog that just got dumped, we can be like, hey, Chicago, you know, our neighbors in Chicago, they are having a really rough time right now. The eviction moratorium ended, unemployment is high, people are getting sick. Everyone's having a tough time and their pets are seeing the brunt of it. So how can we help people and their pets? And that's a call in instead of a call out. And that's what we're all about right now, is calling in people and like, how can we help you? How can we help you? How can we get you on our side so you can help us help other people? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now and just give a couple examples of other ways to reach people in an inclusive manner. And here we go. Okay, so I just have 3 examples. The first one is, Heather Friedman already touched on this, but making sure that you are translating materials. And this is our pet mutual aid group. So this is what would be our outreach group where we do a lot of vaccine distribution, food banks, things like that. And we always translate all of these materials. But this is what I see a lot of groups doing, and I'm calling myself in right now because this is a challenge that we've been trying to figure out, is let's make sure that we're not just translating and targeting outreach materials, but instead we're doing it to everything. So we are calling in volunteers that speak different languages and come from different demographics, adopters, donors, everyone, so that our community can be diverse in every which way. And we're not just trying to reach people who speak different languages to give them free pet food or something like that, because we are missing out on amazing volunteers and adopters when we do that. But this is honestly, this is really easy, and you can use Google Translate. It's not always perfect. And for your website and for other materials, I definitely recommend getting a translator, like Heather Friedman said, because it's really important. But for quick posts on social media, you can just use Google Translate. And usually someone in the comments will correct you. And I love when that happens, because then you can go and you can thank them and edit it, and you build a connection that way. Okay, the next way is, this is not my post, but I thought it was timely for October, and I also just really liked it, but alt text. So if you're not familiar with alt text, that is for people that are visually impaired, so that they can get a sense of what you're posting in the photo. And I think alt text is so fun because you get to describe the photo. And if it's an animal, a lot of times you get to just describe, like, this is a chunky brown pit bull who's like lounging on the couch eating ice cream or whatever it is. So it's a fun way to do that, but it's so inclusive, and it shows people that you care about them. And it invites more people in. I thought this one was fun because it's a large tan spider with segmented body and 8 long legs. Like, ooh, okay. We get to at least describe puppies and cute things like that. And also they made a mistake and accidentally said that the legs were over a foot long. So I thought that was really funny. So be careful. Don't let autocorrect tell you that you have like a 600-pound dog or something like that. So these are really easy and very free ways to be more inclusive in your communications and to invite people in. We're using social media every day. We have not incorporated alt text yet, but it is absolutely on our list to do right now. And the nice thing is it's totally free and easy, and it's just such a simple way to be able to show people you care. Okay, I'm gonna pivot a little bit now, and I'm gonna talk about our team. This is our pet mutual aid team, but they are a really nice gateway to our community because they are on the ground, boots on the ground every day, talking to pet owners in different communities, and they speak Spanish. So this is really important. If you are hiring people and you want them to reach communities, not only does your media have to represent the community, but your staff has to represent the community too. So these are two wonderful Latinx women that work for us that speak Spanish, that are from the area and are able to connect with people in different ways. And they know when they're doing outreach, it's really important that they're not just saying, you know, how can I help you get some free food? They're saying, do you want to join our team? Do you want to come volunteer at the next, you know, community pet day or whatever you're doing? And then they are also able to talk to them about fostering. So we've got new fosters from our vaccine clinics and things like that. So it's really wonderful to have a team. And, you know, when I struggled to get more people on our volunteer that was diverse, I realized it was because I wasn't in the community talking to people enough. So we do that all the time now, and we make sure that our staff is there and that our staff knows to talk to people about how they can get involved too. So it's a two-way street. That's why we call it mutual aid. We help them, they help us. We're all working together towards the same thing. Okay, that is all my slides. I think I had one more quick thing. So really quickly, we also use fosters and volunteers to spread the word about everything that we're doing. And I think that something that happens a lot is we get the really passionate people, and then they come and talk to people, and you see the judgment coming out from them. And you know, that's how I started too. You know, I was fiery when I first started in animal welfare, because you're there for a reason and your passion drives you. So we found that we had to take all of these things that I just talked about, but especially the non-judgment and stuff like that, and weave it into our culture so that our volunteers learn that from day one. We don't ever shame owner surrenders. This is how we talk about rehoming and stuff like that. So that it then becomes part of what they do. So when they talk to the community and their friends and family, they're spreading the exact message that you want them to, instead of just whatever comes from their gut. So that's been really successful for us. And that, I think, has also helped keep our volunteers close, because they feel like they're part of our culture and part of our goal, which is to spread the word more. So that's been a wonderful way to reach more people. And if you do all of these things, then you're going to have a more diverse volunteer base, and they're going to reach more diversity, and you're going to have more people coming in, and we are going to solve this problem quicker than we think. So that's why communications and marketing is so important. It's not just about getting dogs adopted. It's about like closing this gap and making sure we have everyone on board for the same special goal, which is to stop euthanasia and to save all the animals. So I think we can do it. I think we can get there, and there's easy ways to do it. That's all I have.
So awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. Oh, I always love hearing you talk, because I feel like you're very real, where you bring your, you know, we always talk about people bringing their most authentic self and feeling safe to do that. And I feel like you always bring your most authentic self to whenever I hear you speak in whatever forum you're presenting on. And again, so much good information here, where to start. So what I'd like to do right now is invite anyone who has a question to for either Heather O or Heather F to post it in the chat. But I would like to start off with a question, because I know from much of from reading all of your great applications that a lot of the organizations that are joining the challenge are trying to recruit Spanish speakers mostly, but volunteers who speak a different language than English, depending on what other languages are spoken in their area. So I know a lot of folks are doing that. And then a lot of folks are also working on translating their materials to other languages too. So it sounds like both of you had great experiences doing that. And Heather F., I'd like, if I could ask you first, did you pay for those services? Or like you were saying, not using Google Translate because you saw the inaccuracies. Did you have a volunteer correct that? Did you pay for those services? How did you go about that?
So a couple of different ways. We have been guilty of using Google Translate in the past, and that's what we're trying to get a little bit better at. And we have had volunteers. The challenge with volunteers is Sometimes dialects are different, so they may not have a general one enough, and it doesn't have some of the nuances. And so sometimes it takes a little bit more back and forth with the volunteers that we had. So when we've paid for it, it's been a much more streamlined and professional process. And I felt like we had a greater level of being able to trust that this is correct and this is what we need to put out to our communities. So we have staff members who are also bilingual, and sometimes they'll help out in a pinch, which is super useful, but they're very, very, very busy. So we try not to tax them with this. So we found somebody in the community who is a neighbor, and she gave us a fantastic pricing model. It was only like a penny for every word or something like that. And it's just made it an affordable option, because we did look at an agency and they wanted like $100 a flyer. And we're like, we can't afford to translate our flyers for, so I think like what Heather Owen said is building those relationships at events with, your community. You will find those people who want to help, who love animals. And this is an easy way for them to do that.
And thank you. Heather, anything you want to add about recruiting? Or we got a great question in the chat too about how, this is from Lindsay, how she has Spanish speakers on her team, but they aren't always at the shelter. And I know I had that when I worked in shelters too, where you'd be like, oh, they'll be back tomorrow. And then it's like, well, are you going to lose that volunteer? Are you going to lose that adopter, lose that person who needed help, whatever it may be. Any more about how to recruit and retain Spanish speakers or other speakers in your community?
Yeah, and we have that problem, and we made it really a high priority this year. So we just had an opening on our adoption team, and we required bilingual Spanish. So if that's something, if you have staff or anyone there, like making sure you have someone on the adoption team that can do that is really important. But we've had similar instances where people come in and we don't have someone to translate. So we made a list of our volunteers that would be on call on phone, so that we could at least like put them on FaceTime and have someone there to talk through them. And then our website, we also have we have a Spanish application, but we also have a Spanish email that's like, do you have questions and only speak Spanish? You can email us here. And so if they're like, I want to adopt, that person can walk them through it and make sure if they come in and have an appointment that someone can be there. It's sort of like plugging holes. And I think like the better, bigger solution is just to make sure that if you have a lot of Spanish speakers, make sure you have Spanish speakers on staff and they're always available, which again, easier said than done, but that should be the end goal.
Awesome. Thank you. And you've gotten some really great suggestions in the chat too. Some folks are using high school teachers and university students to translate, or university teachers too. I know that when I worked in the San Francisco SPCA, we were able to give bilingual staff members a bonus, like they got an extra $1 or $1.50 in their hourly wage that other folks did not get, which was controversial, but it's a skill, right? So it's, people who have more skills sometimes get paid more than others. So something to think about. Another thought I had too, real quick, is when you're getting those people who are correcting you on your social media posts, reach out to them, right? Like, thanks so much, Martha 1745, would you like to volunteer with us or something like that? Like, wow, you're so good at this. And then Heather, you said the great point of calling people in. I thought that's a great way to do that too, at least virtually. You can volunteer from home and translate things. You don't even have to come into the shelter. Great. I also really definitely want to encourage everyone to talk about more how to recruit Spanish speakers and work on translation materials. Definitely take that conversation to the forum, because I know it's something a lot of organizations are working on. And I know that together we'll definitely have more suggestions. Another question that has come up in the chat. So I think everyone here has a better understanding now of alt text, and folks are going to look into that more, which is great. Rachel Max asks a good question. How do you teach non-judgment to volunteers without lecturing them or turning them off? So Heather, I'm going to throw this one to you first, because I know you've gone through the change yourself, right? And you probably had volunteers that were resistant, or at least it was new for them at first. How did you manage that?
Yeah, well, so there was another comment like right under that I thought was like a great answer. And I don't think it was directed towards this, but there's a difference between talking at people versus talking with people. So I think that like, keep that in mind too. But we did some other things too. So we have our values on our website, and non-judgment is one of our values. So we can always just point to that and be like, this is part of who we are. If that doesn't fit you, there's many rescues out there. And also just the idea that you don't have to change everyone's mind. We just put out there who we are. And when you do that, and when you're very intentional about that, you tend to attract those people back. So that's been really helpful. But when we get to a point where we also have it in our volunteer orientation. So we list our values, and there's a short video from me talking about being inclusive and making sure that we don't make anyone feel like they don't belong here. So it's from the start, that is part of what we do. So if someone is going to say something that we feel like is too judgmental or inappropriate, it's not going to be out of the blue that we're going to be like, hey, that actually doesn't fit for what we do here. So we have very active Facebook forums for our volunteers and fosters, and it does come up sometimes. And if it does, then we're just gentle and we say, and it's usually about like a dog being returned or something. And people are very emotionally attached to the animal. So they get upset and they're like, oh, they didn't even give them a chance or whatever. And we just gently are like, you know what? We don't know where anyone is coming from. This is a good opportunity for us to find a better home for this animal. And let's just look forward and make sure that we're not judging people without knowing where they're coming from. And typically that works. If it doesn't, we also are not afraid to let people go if they are feeding into something that we feel like is going to have a negative effect for everyone.
Thank you. Heather F., is there anything you want to add about that?
Yeah, it's such a timely question. We actually got together as a team and we talked about this topic on Wednesday because somebody had received an email from a volunteer that had a little snide comment in there. And, he was asking, how do I respond to this? Because we do want to put a stake in the ground and we do want to say, these are not our values. And I think we are working on rolling out our values this year as well. And that's once we have that to stand as like, this is not how we want to treat our community. But I think there's also subtle ways. I loved what Mary Smith said on the call this week. She said, be curious, not furious. And that's what we're trying to say essentially, right? Like, we don't know what's going on behind the other side of that scene of why an animal might be surrendered, and that it was probably the most gut-wrenching thing that family had to do. And so we have to stop making assumptions. So we talked about doing a dismiss the myth around it, like kind of like revealing the stuff you may not know behind a scene that should cause you to take pause and not make assumptions. And instead, we just need to focus on how to help the animal moving forward and kind of steer it in that positive direction. But I do like what Heather's saying of having a very clear line and being comfortable enough to communicate that honestly and transparently. I think it's a great way to go.
I think, and this is a conversation about marketing. And I think in animal welfare, we've seen ourselves change so much. I know a lot of us have been in this industry for a while. I always look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been in animal welfare for almost 20 years. Like, how did that happen? Like, where did those 20 years go? Right. But we get so hung up on this idea of a forever home. And I think that's one of the things we need to let go of and, teach our volunteers and our teams that is it's not always forever. We know that some of us have had to rehome animals ourselves. Life happens. And I think just knowing a home is what this animal needs and not get so hung up on this aspect of a forever match or a forever home. Thank you both. So I think we have time for one more question. And this is one of my favorite people who always asks the tough questions. So Emily Roberts, you have a question about reaching elderly folks. Do you want to unmute and ask your question specifically?
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Emily.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. I use she, her pronouns. For those of you who might need the description, I have medium brunette hair. I'm wearing a plaid shirt. I have blue glasses and I'm in our cat room with a white cage behind me. But I wanted to ask specifically about reaching elderly folks in the community because I just recently moved to this community and started as a shelter manager, and the demographic is much different. One thing that we always ask when we're on the phone with folks is like, okay, do you have internet access? Which is not something I'm used to asking, but it's been hard because I've been struggling with trying to streamline all of our processes. So I got our appointments online, I got our adoption applications online, fosters, volunteers, I got volunteer software with like with Shelter Love. When you try to like check someone out, you know, a lot of people are doing that on their phone now, and I'm working adopting out to folks who don't have smartphones and whatnot. So my question is just sort of like, how do you maintain that and kind of keep that momentum going when we're suddenly like, we have all of these online applications for animals, but then we also get the occasional paper application from someone who doesn't have a smartphone or a computer. And especially with all of that during the age of COVID, where that's a super vulnerable population. And so we're not going out into the community as much and like, you know, going to nursing homes and doing adoption events there and whatnot, like I would like to do if COVID were not a thing.
Thank you, Emily. I know you worked so hard to put all those applications online and get it, you know, make the process easier for everyone, and then it made it harder for other portions of the population, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of folks on this call are also working with different age groups too. So it's a great question. Heather O, do you have anything you'd like to say about that? About working with the seniors?
Sure. And we're working on this too. So I don't have a ton to say, but I'd say one thing that I see a lot are discriminatory practices that go, you know, to elderly people. So people won't adopt certain age of animals, or they require they adopt a senior, or they require they have a plan in place or something like that. I would say scrap those right away, because you're gonna lose a lot of people. So get rid of those barriers for elderly adoptions. The thing that helped us is just having a phone or on our application, or just having an option for people who are like, I don't do email, can you please call me? So we have that on our website, but also we are able to like, usually I'm finding that it's people who like have, it's someone that's connected to us and then they want to help like their mom or their grandma or someone like that. So we haven't found a way to independently reach those populations. Maybe Heather Friedman has that can share that, but those are the two things that we do.
And you mentioned too, Heather, that you're doing like door hangers too. So I think that's a good way, you know, to safely reach people, you know, because the door is like literally between you, right? So you can get the information out in a way that's like COVID safe too.
Yeah, I think that was Heather Friedman, but we've done that
sorry.
too, and they're awesome. I love door hangers. So yeah, big fan.
And then Heather F, anything you want to add about connecting with our seniors?
No, I think that's exactly what Heather said. And I think, you know, you're trying to approach a specific demographic, you do have to change your model and find ways to be accommodating and embracing. And whether it's getting a few volunteers to help triage and do applications and take time, like maybe set a certain day of the week, like Friday afternoons are senior help days, and you can call and work with facilities. You can bring animals there. You can bring teams with iPads that can help sit and give an assistant to kind of like help each senior process that adoption. I think, I'm sure there's a ton of other in the chat too, but I would say a really interesting demographic that I think does get overlooked when we think of inclusivity. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, and I know more than just Emily is working on this, because again, I've seen your applications. So I would definitely encourage everyone to take these and any of your other questions that didn't get answered to the forum. Ben, to definitely hop on the forum, because I see that you say that you bring the tablet out for the seniors and help them input their application, which is just customer service at its finest. And then you know, just really working with those folks to help them. So we so appreciate that. And again, I'm so sorry we didn't get to everyone's questions. These 45 minutes just keep flying by, but please join us on the Pet Forum. Heather F and Heather O, thank you so much for being here today. They'll be on the forum answering your questions, and we'd love to see everyone here. Next week, I'll be away, but Wendy and Gina will be hosting the huddles on Tuesday and Thursday, where we're going to be talking about a welcoming culture on Thursday and marketing partnerships in the community on Tuesday. So can't wait to see you back on Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time and 1 p.m. Eastern time. As always, thank you all for joining us. Please stay safe, take good care of yourself so you can continue to do all the great things you do for people and their pets. We'll see you next week.